Low self-esteem. Something many still struggle with, something that you can actually overcome. But it takes time. You have to look within and say, you know what? This entangledness all around me, I start to entangle myself out of whatever it is. Now, many overlook low self-esteem. Sadly, most times it stems from our childhood. It could be how we've been raised. A parent, because they do not want to face realities of what they've done, of gone through, will look at a child who's progressing, identify one particular one or two, and then either pin them against each other or start speaking negative words. Now, the child has no wrong. The parent in this case knows what they are doing, but because they do not want to face their own reality and start to work on themselves, they then transfer all this into a child. So an innocent child is told all these negative things. If the child is beautiful or handsome, they're told they're ugly. Or they're told you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too this, you're too that, you're too. As a child grows up and they move into teenage years, same songs play. One kid, this is where peer pressure becomes strong, and you're told, no, you're not like us. That continues. You move to the next level. They get into college years or university. That continues. They move. So when it comes now when they are now mature, they're still stuck with the same words. And that's where you'll find someone, they're very successful in their career. Some sadly turn into being workaholics, and they become workaholics like there's no tomorrow. I can confess I was an alcoholic, yes, and mine was definitely built out of low self-esteem because of the negative words I was told since I was a kid. So I got used to it. Plus, the environment that I was raised under was a very violent type of. So I never understood the word positive. And all through until I think maybe 25 there. That's when I flipped the script. But all through. But however, I hadn't gotten that deep into some areas. I was very cautious at the same time. Until now, where I'm in a place whereby there are things I look at, I'm like, whatever. But yes. And as you grow, even how you choose your relationships is almost pegged to how you've been raised. You start seeing your partner as a parent. You start thinking they have the same traits. And if they do have, you cut them off. And maybe there's one or two, as they say, that could simulate, but it doesn't mean they're the same. But because of the anger of what you endured as a child, the person you're dating might have uttered or said something that makes you resonate with how your parent or sibling once uttered against you. So this person with great potential, you throw them off because you're thinking, nope, you just like my folks, you just like my sibling. No, I don't need you. Yet that wasn't the actual case. And the danger of low self-esteem actually comes to career is everybody looks at you as you have it all figured out. You are the best of the best. And actually, you'll notice this with most of the most career-driven people. They get it done at their highest speed and everything. And I'm not saying it's good, bad to be a performer. All I always say is look within and ask yourself as you're performing, if that job, if that career shuts down, does that then change you as a person? Because if it does change you, if it does bring you to a place whereby you have a lot of look so down on yourself, then maybe you need to work on something. Maybe it's a childhood thing that never really was resolved. And you can put all the filters, whether digital, whether physical. You can drive all the best cars. You can build all the most expensive houses. You can do all these things. But if you do not deal with the low self-esteem, if you don't deal with those issues, I'm sorry to say it's all not worth it until you go to the root of it. And the most scary thing is when such a person who's gone through that becomes a leader. Now that becomes even scary. So scary because they have no problem wiping out a nation, a multitude, a community. They'll do it at the blink of an eye. And when you're in that place whereby you can't take criticism, you see, if someone cannot tell you, hey, something is wrong, and you say, okay, let me think, thanks, let me check on it or anything, you may have a problem. So let me give a very good example. It's a teacher. A teacher, let's say they had a flu. You know, when you have a flu and mucus, there's that small area that is hanging. So a pupil or student tells the teacher, sir or madam, there's something within your nose, something. Now, this teacher doesn't like to be told anything. According to them, they know it all. Let's say they're the best teacher, the best of the best. And they ignore this little one. Sadly, most of them, what they always do, they'll beat up their child like there's no tomorrow. Then they go into a staff room. Then they notice praying eyes. Everybody is like, whoa, dude, man, or lady, style up. They have no idea. They're telling them they can only notice their eyes looking everywhere. And then, let's say it was supposed to be the moment they're supposed to get a big break in something. Then, achoo, then whoof, flies into this person who's supposed to be their potential. Guess what happens? One, you have a lot of shame. Two, you'll have a nickname. Three, that opportunity just flew the door. All you have to do is listen to that young child who warned you, like, sir or madam, there may be something up with your, something happens. And that's why we are living in a time whereby you can't even correct someone if they do something wrong. Let's say you see something that you're like, maybe something in terms of there's something they've dressed that is actually revealing something, and everybody's seeing it, but everybody's scared to say it. And when someone tells you, the first thing, you're on attack mode. Oh, you men, oh, you women, yada, yada, yada. Eventually, people decide not to. Then disaster strikes. Then you start saying people are like this, people are like that. Maybe you have to look within. So it's very important to always look within. Now, these are just but few examples of what happens. But the thing is, if you don't sit down and look at within yourself and ask yourself as a person, are there traits that I'm carrying from my childhood? Are there traits? Now, your childhood can be very okay. But let's say as you're growing, as you're meeting people and getting challenged, people utter words to bring others down. When you look at bullying, people will bring you down just because you don't match up to something they believe in or an ideology. That can make people tell you things that are very painful. Not because they are right, but because they know you have a great potential. So it's important to always look at criticism with a good lens, because there is positive criticism and there is negative criticism. It's important to understand when you're being criticized, don't be the first one to jump into defense mode. Listen, agree or disagree, listen. And then if you realize there's something to work on it instead of always fighting, because there are things you may ignore, but it's going to catch up with you and it's going to humiliate you or break or destroy great networks and opportunities. So low self-esteem has no line of path to which you can't find yourself. But the most important thing is love yourself enough to understand that one thing, life happens. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose our community. We don't choose the nations that we'll be brought up and raised in. Sometimes we may not even have the power over some of the leaders that we have, because some of these leaders will just rip their way through. We may not choose many things, but one thing we can't choose is how we choose to look at life and say, this is not me. You can be raised in a very toxic or dysfunctional family, but you could be the one to say, not my children, not my bloodline. So before you even jump in and decide I want to date someone or anything, take your time first and look within. Make sure there are no things that you're transferring from who you are and end up destroying a good relationship, a good friendship, a good network. Yet there are things you could have resolved within yourself. Study, learn. And when you're studying within to try to understand yourself. I'm not talking about your academics. Academics, you can have your certificate from here to forever. But if you have unresolved issues, when you're given great opportunities, you're going to mess it up big time. So it's very important to understand, because here we're looking at people who are very successful, but there are things they're doing. You scratch your head and say, hey, with all that money, that's where you're thinking to take it? Creepy. Yeah, but that's the world we live in. So we all been raised differently, and we all look at life with different lenses. The most important thing, ask yourself a question. other things I'm carrying from my childhood or adulthood or teens or whatever it may be, or bad relationships that I'm carrying forward. Work on anything and everything in your life. And if there are things people have told you, hey, I've noticed you're like this or like that, check it, do your self-evaluation. Because low self-esteem is that little portal that you ignore that eventually becomes a hole you cannot control. Each one of us is a work in progress. So don't worry, you'll figure it out.